Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. I'm Joey, and today we're going to be looking at the R35S. Now, I'm going to be doing a mini review, which if you've seen my previous videos on mini reviews, basically just going to do kind of a quick one take, not a lot of editing, just to show you what the device is. And usually I do this when it's just not a device that I want to make a full video on. And that might be a good or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But today it's a bad thing. The flip that I did a video on last was a good one, and I'm probably going to revisit that one in an actual video. But for today, we're going to talk about the R35S and what I really don't like about it. So let's start off here. We'll go with what's in the box. So obviously the R35S, I have the white one here. And open up this bad boy. Nice little protection, this, and a USB cable and just a random manual, so normal. No screen protector, nothing like that. That's about it. So let's get this out of the way. This here is the R35S, and this is a clone of the Powkitty RGB20S. So this company here, which I don't know if we actually figured out who it is, decided to clone the RGB20S, which is one of the more popular budget devices out there. Actually, I think it might be Powkitty's best-selling device, but either way, they decided to clone this and make this, and they made some changes to it. So right off the bat, you can see they changed the design of the speaker here. They moved this to there, as well as the FN button is now a circular button instead of what it was on the RGB20S. And then I'm not going to talk about these yet. We'll get there. Made some changes on the other side as well, just different kinds of buttons. So the RGB20S is using square-ish buttons here. These are a lot more forceful. These are a little bit more loose. The rest of it, kind of the same. There's some, I don't know if those are air vents or speaker holes on the bottom, but there's something there. And then we have the other side again. This is a bit more squared off, but different kinds of buttons too. And as far as I can tell, there might be a bit of a difference in the screen. I think they changed the screen on the R35S. This does look really nice, especially, we'll do some comparisons now, but you can see it here compared to the RGB20S, and it's a little bit of a difference. I wouldn't say it's massive, but it's a lot more crisp on the screen, and even though we're stretched out for Game Boy here. And then just to compare it with some other devices, I have the Miu Mini Plus, and we're at 100% brightness. So you can see just the comparison. The Miu is definitely not as bright as this gets. And then we have the R35S, which, again, same thing. So best screen out of all three, or all four, I guess. This is a really nice screen for this device. But that's kind of where it ends with this device. Price-wise, it's at about 50 US dollars now from AliExpress, if I remember correctly. So it's about the same price as these two. The RGB20S, I believe, is a bit more expensive. So same price as these two here. So we'll do a bit more of a comparison against these. And here's the thing. This has a better processor in it than both of these, so it's more powerful than both these devices. This can run some Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, and the like, PSP, and that sort of thing. Now, I'm saying some because we do know what this chip is, and if I remember correctly, it's the 3326. And what this can do is some Nintendo 64, but when we're talking about that, we mean the Super Mario 64, and kind of that's it, unless you want to go deep down the rabbit hole of a lot of tweaks to get things to work. So here, and I'm going to show you what out of the box. We're running ArcOS here. I put ArcOS on here. And let me show you what this looks like out of the box with Super Mario 64, because you're going to get an understanding of what I mean when you have to make changes here. So out of the box with Super Mario 64, this is what you get. And I mean, you can probably tell something's wrong already, and obviously I can, but there is the wrong core selected for this kind of device. And I think it's, let me show, well, we can't really show FPS right now, but this obviously looks incorrect. And it's the wrong core. So we have to go ahead and change the core for this to get it to run properly. And then when you do that, there's not a lot of Nintendo 64 games that are going to run really well anyways. You're going to get Super Mario 64, you might get Ocarina, you might get some of those, but it's just not going to be a great time. And I don't, how do I say this? When you're spending 50 US dollars to get a not great experience for a platform, I don't consider it part of the core of what this device can do. So for me, this stops at PlayStation 1, which is the exact same as what these stop at. And at that point, I mean, they're pretty much the same. But if you do like the nice screen, then here we are. But let's talk about what my actual issues with the device is, because having a performance boost compared to these at the same price is an added bonus, right? Like nobody's going to say no to that if it's the same price. And so my actual issues with this device and why I don't like it at all is the controls. These controls are, and this isn't a lie, but it's probably the worst controls I think I've ever seen on a device. And I don't mean the placement of it. The placement of the controls on this is fine. I can play like this all day long. I don't have an issue with that at all. My issue is how stiff these buttons and D-pad are. So let me just jump into something because it's not even just the stiffness, but it's actually missing inputs as well. If you can see, this is, there's a lot of force that I have to push down on to get this D-pad to do anything. And that's the same with these buttons as well. Like it's not an easy push as something like the RGB 20S, which that's an easy push. If I go here, it's not. Like I have to use so much pressure to do that. And that's where it fails for me because I've always been the person that wants good controls on a handheld because what's the point? There's so many handhelds out there. Why would I buy a handheld that fails at the number one thing that you want a handheld to do, and that's controls? Because I could go ahead and grab the Miu Mini Plus, which has one of the best D-pads out there, and this feels fantastic. Then you go ahead and play with the buttons. That feels fantastic. We have the 35XX, and it's the same sort of thing. This D-pad isn't as good as the Miu Mini Plus, but it's serviceable. This feels fine, and so do the buttons. But when you get to here, this is, like I said, probably the worst D-pad I think I've ever felt, and the worst buttons I think I've ever felt. None of this feels good at all to me, and it really makes it hard to play an actual game. So I'm playing, like you even touch the A button too while you're playing. I I don't know how else to kind of convey this, but this physically hurts me to do this. I really don't like these controls. So if you are like me and controls are your number one priority, I guess, then this isn't for you. Like this, the amount of pressure I have to put on this button is just insane. The screen itself looks fantastic. Like the processing power of the screen, all that sort of stuff. I don't mind this control layout. That's all fine. It really just comes down to the controls. And if I'm spending, I mean, $50 is already bottom of the barrel here. We're already in kind of budget territory. But if I'm going to spend $50, I want the device to be um, I want to have fun playing it. And I have fun playing the Miu Mini Plus, and I have fun playing the 35XX. I just got this, but I can already tell like the controls are going to be just fine. So it'll be the rest of the device for this. But for this, it's just not good. And that's unfortunate because I think if they fix that, I think if they weren't using, because that's the other thing too. Like if they weren't using these buttons and this D-pad and they weren't so stiff, this would be fantastic. Like I would easily recommend this to anybody. But as of right now, I'm not going to. Like this is kind of e-waste to me at this point. But the other thing too is they're using this engraving on these buttons here. So you can see it. I'm just gonna zoom in. You can see it here. This is not painted on, like that's actually engraved. And that's annoying. It's not like they did it on here. This you don't feel it as much. This is nice and smooth, like it's not something that bothers you. But this, it's like they took a razor to it and dug out and then didn't really smooth it down at all. It's very uncomfortable. Um, so for me, I just don't like it. It's not something that I would consider good. And I mean, for $50, if you're gonna spend $50, then sure, this is fine. But you're gonna hate your life doing whatever this D-pad is doing and buttons are doing. Um, it's just not for me. But also, like when we're talking about devices like this, there's the Data Frog, and that's $20. And I still don't think that's a good device either. For me, the budget devices into this hobby are these two. I wouldn't consider anything else besides these two. And I've been leaning more towards the Mini Mini Plus because it has Wi-Fi, and that makes things a lot easier. But if we want to talk about budget king devices or whatever, this isn't it, unless you can replace these. If we can replace these, then I'll revisit this, and this might be a good device. But as of right now, it's probably going to be something I sell pretty quickly or get rid of. I don't know who's going to buy this for how cheap it is, but um, it's unfortunate. This screen is really nice. Like I would really like this device if that was the case. But here, we'll do a speaker test too, because the speakers on this is actually really good too. So let's pull this out. See, like you can't even push these buttons. I don't know if they're recessed in or what's going on. Just none of it feels good at all. My camera's that way, so I'm going to point it that way. Or microphone, I mean. This sounds great. This is a fantastic sounding speaker, and much better than what you have on these two devices. So if we just as a comparison, and it's a different game here, but there's some significant distortion at higher levels. What you were listening to here was at full blast. And then same thing here. Just more distortion. And I'm curious, I haven't really looked at this one yet, so let me see. I don't know. This sounds pretty good as it is. This might have a little bit better of an upgraded speaker. I'm not sure. But I mean, this sounds pretty good too. But either way, the point to make here is that obviously the speakers on these two aren't that great. And we knew that already because we've looked at these devices. But this device here is, yeah, it's they did some good things here and then failed at the ones that matter. It's it's just these. So if you're watching this review and you're like, hey, Joey hates another device, what else is new? And I get it. I have a reputation for that. But I mean, look, for me, mm, and I think for most people at this point, money is important. So instead of spending $50 on something that is not great, I'd rather spend $70 on something that is. because you're just going to hate yourself if you get a device and you cut corners on budget to hit some price point that you have in mind, but it's just not as good. And so for me, like I'm looking at devices in a way of, is it worth it to the average consumer? Is it worth it to me? Would I buy this? And the answer is I bought it, but I don't like it. And so I did that research for us. Um, I think if you're a collector, somebody who would pick up a lot of devices, then I mean, you don't need my advice at all. Like this is something you're probably going to buy, and off you go. But if you're somebody that's on the fence, maybe don't have a device, then definitely I would not suggest this as the first one that you should get. If you're somebody who has maybe a higher end device and you're looking at something smaller, I still don't see it. It's really just if you can get over these controls, if you don't mind extremely stiff and not accurate controls, then sure, grab it. But I mean, at that point, why? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. So that's my mini review. That's my thoughts. I'll leave a link in the description where you can buy this if you want it. It's on AliExpress, and there's different versions now and all that sort of thing. Um, I don't really have much else to say. For me, this was a failure as soon as I felt the device, and we didn't even talk about these back buttons, which I guess we could. As far as I can tell, yeah, it's just stiff. It's like they took the entire RGB 20S and made everything stiff. I don't I, I that's not comfortable. I don't know why you would do that. Like this is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But this, it's like if you want a good workout in 2023, buy this device. You'll have gains on gains for your fingers when you play this. Plus, you'll develop calluses from having to deal with these engraved buttons. I don't know. I know there was a lot of hype for this device because of Taki's video. I just, yeah, and he mentioned a lot of these controls too in his video, but I think it's understated. I know he got used to it. This is not something I could get used to at all, and not something I want to get used to. There's way too many devices out there, and not enough time to waste on bad devices. So if they fix this, let me know. I'll take a look at it again. But until then, um, garbage bin, I guess, or sell it. It's not for me. That's going to be it. Let me know in the comments. I know a lot of people have been excited for this device, and I wasn't really going to make a video until I was asked by multiple people to do so. So here it is. Probably not what you were expecting or wanting, but it's what you get. So let me know in the comments what you think, if you have one, how you got over this stiffness and all of that, because the rest of the package is pretty good. But yeah. Don't forget to like and sub to help this channel grow, and I hope you all have a good one.